When Mega Digimon Fusion was banned, it clearly showed that the Digimon card game had a tendency to make white cards a little bit more powerful, as there was not an archetype yet. As you would see with later installments of the white archetype or coloring of cards with something like armor texture, we could see that they were more focused on assisting their specific strategy if they were made into the white coloring, or be a bit more balanced so that they don't overtake the game. However, with a card like Analog Youth or Analog Boy, for those who want to call whatever it is, this card is absolutely polarizing, as some people still want it restricted to one, and some people even call for it to be banned as it's too good as a generic searcher. But this is not the catalyst for today's video, as today's video is rising from the depths of the net ocean itself, as thanks to the last Digimon movie, we would finally receive a new Digimon, but a new Digimon who's actually going to play part in our metagame. And of course, if you guys haven't seen by the thumbnail, that is Ukkomon. So with Ukkomon starting off with today's video, I believe that it is going to take over the meta. It's only a matter of time, as it's already seen play with its first release. And we'll get into why Ukkomon is so good right now. As currently there will be 2 Ukkomons in the card game soon, we are only able to use one here in the TCG, and we are already seeing the effects of the other one in the OCG at the moment, and we will eventually get it. So obviously we can talk about the one Ukkomon we have as the promo Ukkomon that came out from the movie pack, as well as in the structure deck that came from when you purchased Blast Ace, the Imperial Dramon deck, as well as the Tamer Party pack, I believe, that hosts Ukkomon's alternate art. This card is absolutely powerful, and we'll talk about it right now, as its effect reads as follows. Your turn, once per turn, when one of your Digimon moves from the breeding area to the battle area, you may hatch in your breeding area, then you gain 1 memory. And after that, that's pretty much all it does. Now, Ukkomon is very powerful, and some may wonder why. However, let me give the rundown of what it does. First and foremost, it gives you increased speed, as effectively this is the Mimi effect that we see on the BT1 Mimi that has made green decks so powerful, as they're able to effectively get extra breeding phases and hatching to allow them to accelerate, as well as additional setup, as effectively what Ukkomon does is once it's come out of the breeding area and hatched an egg, you can immediately start your second stack. So if you wanted to, Ukkomon basically focuses on manipulating your breeding area to accelerate your play, as well as that additional memory you gain back will come in handy, as since Ukkomon can digivolve for 0, you're almost guaranteed to start your turn with at least 2 memory with its effect. And more importantly than anything else, it can evo in the back, which is very important, which does allow you to effectively mean if you see this card, it is not a brick, and allows you to start playing on your turn. And effectively, if there are any white cards in the future that will digivolve on top of white rookies, this would be a rookie that is acceptable for that play. And pretty much this is the first Ukkomon we see, the one that's actually been seen play in various decks, as effectively Rookie Rush strategies have really advantaged with this card, as basically it is an additional breeding phase, but also it allows you to add additional pressure. So that's what makes the promo Ukkomon so good. However, this is not the Ukkomon that I think will dominate the meta. I think this is one that people will play for testing, but it is going to be the one released in BT16 from Beginning Observer, the new Ukkomon coming out of there, that will dominate the meta, as this card, although deceptively seeming worse than the first because it does have a 1 Digivolve cost on level 2s, is absolutely stronger, and you will see in a second as I read the effects. Now, your turn, once per turn, when one of your Digimon moves from the breeding area to the battle area, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You add 1 Digimon card or Tamer card among them to the hand. You return the rest to the bottom of the deck, and then you may hatch in your breeding area. Now, this card is absolutely, in my opinion, better than the original Ukkomon for a few reasons, and I'll read them again. So obviously, we still have some of the similarities here, which is increased speed, as you will be able to accelerate your breeding phases as always, because you will be able to digivolve in, as well as you have something that the other Ukkomon didn't offer, which was boosted consistency. Being able to look at the top 3 cards and taking either a Digimon or a Tamer is effectively getting an Analog Youth that you get for free by just digivolving for 1 cost. And more importantly, we have Ukkomon's ability to memory choke the opponent. Now, some people would argue that this wasn't as viable with the last one in the sense that it was a Digivolve for free, which was in some people's case always better. Most people hate having to Digivolve a rookie in the back for one cost because that's usually very painful because you don't really want to do that. But in the case of something like Ukkomon, it is absolutely worth it, as at the start of your turn or in the start of the game, it is completely fine to give someone one memory. As unfortunately, besides the memory boosts, or actually the training cards, it's very hard to give someone simply one memory back, as there aren't as many 2-play cost cards that are in rotation, or the situation to give them one memory with you have more memory than not. In the case of Ukkomon, you're able to effectively memory choke on the first turn and not be punished, as Ukkomon will give you the surge on the start of your turn once the memory turns back to you, and if you have even more memory, it's just a bitter situation for you because you have more accessibility. Also, Ukkomon being able to evolve in the back is always going to be a benefit. This is a card I don't think you ever want to play cost or hard cast, because obviously by Digivolving in the back, you'll get the most advantages for its effective move to the battle area. So there is those options. But the question many of you are probably wondering is, why is Ukkomon going to be so good and take over the meta? Now, this is actually something that is kind of funny, but makes a lot of sense. If you had watched any of the Japanese nationals that had taken place a couple weeks ago, or actually maybe just a week ago when I saw them, you would actually see the plethora of decks that actually take advantage of using the new Ukkomon and the Ukkomon engine effectively, which I'll talk about in a second. But you see many decks that are either combo focused, something like a Mervamon deck would be a good example. And more importantly, the decks that don't actually have dedicated rookies or don't really focus on using rookies as much. Something like one of the big ones is Manzemon, which was playing very heavily into the Nationals format. Something like Myotismon, or what's going to be the Myotismon deck when we receive BT16. If you guys haven't seen the card Protagonist, I would watch the video of it. It uses Ukkomon and shows kind of why it's a very important tool for a lot of these decks. And something like Dark Knightmon especially, I think, will love this new card, as it will give them access to Tamers as well as their higher level Digimons that they want to Digicross for. Effectively, what you're seeing is decks are utilizing Ukkomon, as they don't necessarily need their rookies prevalently, as most of these decks don't usually use their rookies anyways. They more focus on getting their combo started with either their Tamers, their higher level Digimon, and stuff like that. So by adding Ukkomon, it just effectively gives them an additional piece that they were missing, and getting access to a search card in the form of a Digimon is actually beneficial to them, because they would rather give the one memory to get an additional draw for their breeding phases, because a lot of times these decks do not. So by running a rookie that they actually can effectively know will give them and net them some benefit, but when it leaves the breeding area to the battle area, is going to be very useful. And in combination with promo Louis specifically, this becomes an engine in itself, because by having access to this Tamer, you're basically able to use it to be a forced Mimi when you hard play it. So for 3 costs, you can move a Digimon from the battle area, or the breeding area, to the battle area, giving you that advantage. And by resting it, once this effect triggers from this, when you move a Digimon from the breeding area to the battle area, you will gain a memory. So this effectively makes Louis a fantastic engine for the deck in combination with Ukkomon, and gets it there. Now, before I finish off, I want to talk about why this engine specifically is seeing more play, as its predecessor before was actually attempted, and why it failed. So for those wondering, the predecessor was obviously Kalumon from EX2. This one was specifically designed to facilitate in helping the Tamers decks. So for those who don't know, Guilmon, Renamon, and the Terriermon lines, as well as the Impmon as well, because that was included. Effectively, we have this amazing Digimon, but there's a few reasons why Kalumon did not see mass play as it would before, and I think Ukkomon's a prime example of when you do a strict upgrade from something that was attempted. So when we get into one of the detractors that make Kalumon not viable for many decks, it is probably because of the way it was designed, as Kalumon was pseudo-generic, but not generic enough, unfortunately. Now, people are wondering, what do you mean by not generic enough? Well, it mostly benefits from its effect of playing it for a reduced cost, but you have to have Guilmon, Terriermon, Renamon, or Impmon in play, so you reduce the cost by 2, making it a 1 cost effective play. Now, that would be great, but for other decks, that basically means they don't want to attempt to play them for its additional, for Kalumon's additional effect when you Digivolve your Digimon, you gain a memory, you draw a card, and you can give 3000 DP to a Digimon you have in the battle area. So all those things sound great, but because of that hard cost of 3, it makes it less viable because it's a memory boost that could be, even for now, a training. So obviously there are cards that you'd rather play, and then also you have archetype searchable rookies that want to dig for the pieces of the deck. Like obviously we see something like Shine Greymon and Mirage Yagomon, stuff like that. They really have their rookies tailored for their decks. So obviously Kalumon does not see play there. Now, other factors that make it unplayable in terms of its abilities, we have the fact that memory blockers easily shut out Kalumon, as Kalumon's effectively just a resource so that you're able to effectively continue to loop memory as you digivolve. The hard play cost, like I said before, is kind of the problem because other decks are not really going to play them, and all the decks that it would be built for have slightly better support. So it makes it hard to see a spot for Kalumon to exist. And one of the other detractors, which is kind of glossed over but very important, is that this Digimon can't attack. Kalumon not being able to attack basically means that it's going to sit there. If you had some way to give it blocker, okay, but still by itself, it's not going to be doing anything except being a resource. So you have to keep that in mind when you're using it, that it's not going to do anything for your deck as, say, Ukkomon does. Ukkomon being able to attack is huge because with the ruling of how Digimon work when they leave the breeding area to the battle area, they don't have to effectively have their, I guess, their summoning sickness, so they're able to attack immediately. So Ukkomon being able to hatch another egg, and if you do have Louis in enough memory, you can push another Digimon to the battle area and effectively swing, so it gives you extra advantage there. Whereas Kalumon, unfortunately, doesn't do any of those things. It's mostly just to build up your stack in the battle area, which means it is vulnerable to like targeting and different things like that. So that's basically what makes Kalumon not viable, whereas I think a lot of these issues were fixed with Ukkomon, and you could see that makes Ukkomon much more usable. And ultimately, that's pretty much what I have for you guys today. This is more of just to inform you about Ukkomon's power in the metagame coming forward, as we won't be getting Beginning Observer for a while, but I did want to put it out there for people who are probably thinking that this engine is probably going to be very powerful. I would tell people personally to start testing. Ukkomon will be a rare, so it won't be hard to get. But the point is, get testing, see the decks that it will advantage in, and see if you like it, or if you want to add it to your own deck. That's probably one of the reasons that I think Ukkomon's extremely good, is that if you really wanted to try out Ukkomon in any deck, you can, because it can digivolve on top of any of the digi-eggs in the back. You could use this as an additional resource engine, so do keep in mind that Ukkomon is not a dead card. When you use it, it is actually very beneficial. Your opponent will have to find some type of counterplay to it if they want to really punish the Ukkomon. So something like Digimon Emperor, I think, is a way. But that's pretty much what I have for you guys today. I did hope this helped you out, and if you didn't think about Ukkomon, I hope it's on your radar now. So, as always, this is Brad from the Ad Army signing off. And for all of you out there, to sign on.